The Supreme Court unanimously rules in favor of returning the 60 billion pesos from the National Treasury to PhilHealth. The 60 billion pesos forms part of the 89.9 billion pesos in unused PhilHealth funds. In a press conference on Friday, December 5, Supreme Court spokesperson Camille Ting says the High Court also permanently prohibited the transfer of the remaining 29.9 billion peso fund balance.
The Supreme Court was unanimous when they ordered the return of the 60 million pesos funds of PhilHealth transferred to the National Treasury, and they were also unanimous in permanently prohibiting the transfer of the remaining 29.9 million pesos fund balance. The Supreme Court added that while a state may adopt measures to improve the economy, such measures must not contravene what the Constitution itself guarantees: affordable health care for all Filipinos, especially the underprivileged.
According to Ting, the decision is immediately executory. In February last year, the Department of Finance ordered the transfer of PhilHealth's unutilized government funds amounting to 89.9 billion pesos to the National Treasury. This was in compliance with the 2024 General Appropriations Act, directing the DOF to issue guidelines to implement the collection of unprogrammed appropriations sourced from the fund balance of government-owned or controlled corporations, including PhilHealth. 3 petitions were filed before the Supreme Court that same year, seeking to block the transfer of the PhilHealth funds and questioning its constitutionality. Of PhilHealth's 89.9 billion peso excess funds, 20 billion pesos was transferred to the National Treasury in May 2024. This was followed by 10 billion pesos in August and 30 billion pesos in October 2024. The remaining 29.9 billion pesos was supposed to be transferred in November 2024 but was halted through a temporary restraining order from the Supreme Court. The palace confirms the resignation of Justice Undersecretary Jose Jojo Ragus Kadis Jr. from his post following allegations of involvement in corruption linked to anomalous flood control projects. Kadis is the alleged bagman of President Bongbong Marcos. In a press briefing on Friday, December 5, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro was asked for Malacanang's reaction to a media report saying that Kadis has alleged ties to a major construction company that was only incorporated in 2023. Citing information from the Department of Justice, she says Kadis already resigned.
Sa ating pagkakaalam, siya po ay nag-submit na ng kanyang resignation. Kung sila ay nai-involve at alam nila na maaari sila masangkot kahit wala silang kasalanan. Paggalang ito sa Pangulo mismo nila, para sila muna ay umalis. Sila ay mag-resign. Paggalang ito sa taong bayan, paggalang ito sa Pangulo.
Castro and the DOJ have yet to provide details on whether the resignation has been officially accepted. According to the report, the construction company JSJ Builders Incorporated was named after Kadis's then 19-year-old son. It was found to have more than 200 million pesos in projects in Ilocos Norte. Resigned ako Bicol Representative Zaldico mentioned Kadis in his series of video statements. The former lawmaker said he supposedly received orders from former House Speaker Martin Romualdez to deliver kickbacks from the flood control projects to Kadis. On November 25, Acting Justice Secretary Frederick Vida says Kadis went on leave and was scheduled to return to office last December 1. While Vida did not elaborate on the official's whereabouts, he said Kadis did not apply for a travel authority. Meanwhile, Castro says the public should be glad that personalities close to Marcos who are being dragged into the corruption scandal have left their posts. She says this means the president doesn't tolerate people who might be involved.
Hindi ba dapat ikatuwa ng tao, ng taong bayan? Kung meron mang mga tao na kaalyado ng Pangulo at kapag ka na-involved kahit wala pang desisyon o wala pa man judgment ay umaalis, hindi po ba mas magandang tignan yon? Mas maganda po yon dahil ibig sabihin hindi nagtotolerate ang Pangulo kung mayroon mang mga taong maaaring nasasangkot.
Aside from Kadis, former Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin and former Budget Secretary Amena Pangandaman also left their posts after their names were implicated in 100 billion peso insertions in the 2025 national budget. Both Bersamin and Pangandaman have denied the allegations against them. Meanwhile, Marcos has also dismissed accusations linking him to corruption in public works. The Anti-Money Laundering Council says it secured another freeze order from the Court of Appeals. This brings to 13 billion pesos the total value of frozen assets under the widening probe into anomalous flood control projects. In a statement on Friday, December 5, the Anti-Money Laundering Council says the latest directive covers the assets of a private construction company. According to the agency, the firm was identified as having the greatest number of ghost flood control projects, along with entities and individuals linked to the construction firm. The new court order blocks 280 bank accounts, 22 insurance policies, 3 securities accounts, and 8 air assets. The agency adds that the Court of Appeals found sufficient grounds to connect these assets to possible violations of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act, as well as malversation of public funds and property under the revised penal code. Executive Director Matthew David says the filing of the petition for a freeze order reaffirms the Anti-Money Laundering Council's commitment to recover public funds that may have been misused. The State Weather Bureau declares the onset of La Niña. In an advisory on Friday, December 5, Pag-asa explains that La Niña is usually associated with above-normal rainfall conditions across most of the country during the latter part of the year until the early months of the following year. Pag-asa says recent oceanic and atmospheric conditions indicate that La Niña has developed in the Pacific. According to Pag-asa, the sea surface temperatures in the central and equatorial Pacific started to decrease since September. The agency adds that the sea surface temperatures further declined in November, reaching a weak La Niña threshold. Pag-asa says weak La Niña conditions exist if sea surface temperatures are cooler by 0.5 degrees Celsius or less than the monthly average, and that this is expected to continue in the next 3 months. With this development, the agency notes that higher chances of above normal rainfall are expected from December 2025 to February 2026. Pag-asa says this may cause floods, flash floods, and rain-induced landslides in the country. State meteorologists also note an increased chance of tropical cyclone activity within the Philippine area of responsibility during this period.